spooky, scary skeleton season, and the season 2 boys are back in town. That's right. It's season 2. And as you can see, we've severely upped our production value. You hear the spooky sounds in the background? That's going to be a normal thing on the show now. Hello, and welcome to the Pod People, the show where it's spooky season all the time, every day of the week. I'm the big bad habit, Matisse Van Rossum.
And I'm Sister Act 3, ain't having none of that, Ben Sheets.
And we're excited to welcome back onto the show our good friend, Cleveland Mosher.
It's good to be back.
Now that Cleveland is our neighbor here in Durham, you can expect to hear him on the show more frequently, I hope. Nice to have a third perspective.
Season 2, bigger and better.
Season 2, stronger and hungrier. Like we promised last week, we're here to talk about The Nun.
More like the none of that made any sense.
Yeah, it was definitely a non-starter.
But that's just a non sequitur.
Ooh, coming off hot with those season 2 puns.
This is the most recent installment in the Conjuring cinematic universe, which is something that is a thing. As wild as that is to think about, I guess it started with... It's weird that the Conjuring cinematic universe started with Insidious, that it's not just the Insidious cinematic universe. But I guess all the spin-offs are just from the Conjuring movies.
The Conjuring is arguably the only good one.
The first one, yeah. No, I agree. But if you saw The Conjuring 2, if you didn't, that's fine. But if you did see it, you'll recall that there was a scary nun.
Sure was.
That made some scary faces and some scary noises. And someone...
Had the scary eyes.
And somebody flew out of a window. And then... audiences were like, yes, I need more of this character. I need to know how this nun got so goddamn scary. And that's why we have this movie.
Yeah, because this movie gives us none of that backstory.
I would say let's not stop with the linear progression there. Let's move on to what happened in the writers' room afterwards. I think there was a definite moment in the making of this film where they had their team of focus testers, aka writers, in a collective, and they all gathered around with their hoods and consulted the Book of Tropes.
I think actually probably what they did is they
slaughter a goat.
They took all their writers to like a state fair in like Nebraska or something.
Yeah.
And they had one of those House of Horror rides where you sit in the little go-karts and they putz you through a spooky, scary tunnel.
Yeah, took a bunch of mescaline and they just
put all the writers on one of those, and then when they came out the other side, the director was standing there in front of them, legs akimbo, hands on hips, and said, "Gentlemen and maybe ladies, this is the film that we're trying to make."
When I imagine a writer's room for this movie, I just envision like a room full of fat, failed children's just guzzling down candy corn.
When I imagine a writer's room for this film, I imagine the Spirit Halloween store the day after Halloween.
Yeah. When I imagine the writer's room for this movie, I imagine an empty room.
It's just mannequins with cheap Halloween costumes on them positioned around a table.
I mean, if we're being real, I think this movie was definitely made with a spreadsheet of where they first focus tested people who loved the genre, and they asked them what their favorite films were. They took a pooling and then put all those films into a spreadsheet, and then it random selected scenes and quotes from those movies and just
it was
compiled
just
them
written
into a
by an
script.
algorithm.
Yeah. It was just written by...
It's like that scene in Cabin in the Woods when all of the people are betting on what cursed artifact the kids are gonna touch, and they have a betting pool. Except in this one, it was like they had like a board on the ground, and they cut off a chicken's head, and then they had the lifeless corpse dance around the board until it fell onto the main trope for the next scene.
Oh yeah,
they had a bowl. They had a bowl of ideas, but they just had candy corn in it instead of ideas.
You're right at the truth, though. The Cabin in the Woods exists in this universe. It's part of the franchise. That's what it is.
I think you might be right.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Joss Whedon is the mastermind behind this entire franchise.
We've stumbled upon something huge.
Yeah, James Wan is an anagram or something.
They're already coming for us.
Yeah, it's too late. I'm so sorry.
Oh my god.
Where to even start? Let's start right at the beginning. So this movie starts and it's cut like a trailer at the very beginning, because they cut to like a sequence showing stuff from the original movie to emphasize, hey, this is...
In case you forgot what this movie is.
This is a Conjuring adjacent movie.
Yeah, they showed the folks from The Conjuring. Yeah, and they did this, of course, after all of the production titles come up and stuff at the beginning. And Ben leans over to me and is like, that's a really long introduction for a trailer. I'm just like, dude, this is the movie.
Well, it's cut exactly like a trailer.
You're right. It is cut like a trailer.
And it never stops being cut like a trailer either. Like, the entirety of this movie is just jump cuts. And
I think trailers are cut a little better than this movie. You're giving a little too much credit to this movie.
And then immediately after that, we cut to the prologue scene where there's two nuns in a tunnel filled with what looked like cardboard cutout crosses, and there's like a fog machine rolling,
just dry
and
ice.
They have candles, and that's when I leaned over to Ben and said, "This looks like a haunted house," and
it never stopped.
And the set design of this movie is just like a haunted house. Every fucking set piece, every single one of them,
just all looks incredibly cheap.
Really cheap, really cliche and corny. Lots of candles and like spooky, scary skeletons lying around, and lots of dry ice and fog machines.
Really,
and shit.
really cannot emphasize cliche, that word, enough over this film. There is not a single piece of dialogue or event that occurs in this movie that is...
There's no normal sense of cause and effect in any of this movie either. Like, it's just a string of spooky scenes.
Spooky events. There's like no plot in this movie.
No characterization.
There's a loose framing narrative about some dude from the Vatican and Taissa Farmiga going to an abbey in Romania because a nun killed herself. And then demons happen, and that's the whole. It's just
it.
Like
you don't.
No, that's why it's like.
Movie.
Well, that's why it's like a haunted house to me, because like most haunted houses don't have any like real thought put into them, and each room is just like a totally different, unconnected set piece from the previous one. There's usually no sense of coherence or continuity to the haunted house, and this movie is the same.
Yep.
It's just one after another, like spooky, scary scenes that don't really relate to each other.
Mm-hmm. More of a Disney ride than anything at a state fair, even.
Well, yeah,
quotations around scary.
So we have the three main characters. We have the Constantine character. We have Tessa Farmiga, who's this like nun in training who believes in science.
Well, yeah, that's our entrance to her. Our introduction to her is that she's a nun, but she's progressive because she's teaching little kids about evolution.
Because she's young and doesn't wear a habit all the time.
She's young and hip
until she does wear a habit.
And she we just see her like ripping from Wash's like introduction in Firefly with like dinosaur toys, like beat for beat. It's just she's surrounded by kids instead. There are so many moments like that.
And then later in the same movie, the nun who they established to be like progressive and forward thinking is like, prayer is the only thing that's gonna save us.
Right.
I'm ready to take my vows.
Yeah, but
no, wait, but we gotta first set up by the most key plot point, which is you haven't taken your vows yet, which was said at least 8 times. At least 8 times leading up to that moment. Just miscellaneous characters and demons just being like, you have not taken your vows yet. And no context, no real...
Well, we shouldn't jump around too much. We should also introduce Frenchie, Tessa Farmiga, and Constantine. I'm just going to call him Constantine.
That's fair.
Go to Romania to talk to this farmer guy who found the nun who hung herself, which I do want to mention. The scene where she hangs herself is very... humorously cut, because it's like cutting between her looking down this hallway and this like cross that's like slowly turning upside down on the wall.
It's like it's a loose nail, not even like it's like a satanic force. It just looks like it's like just someone on the other side of the wall, like the paper wall is just like turning the nail around.
But that doesn't
so
just happen once in the movie.
Yeah.
It becomes like a thing anytime the demon's around. Like in the background there'll be a crucifix on the wall and it just starts turning upside down. And I started laughing every time it happened.
Because it was funny.
It's like whoever put up all the crosses in there did a shitty job and they're all just like slowly falling off the walls.
Is the first time the time when it started on fire? Because I know it happened one of those times.
Yes.
Yeah.
After it was fully upside down, right before she jumps out the window with the noose around her neck, it starts on fire. And we can't forget the spooky, scary nun in the hallway. And every time it's obviously on a track. It's not walking. And every time it moves slightly forward, like the candles by it will go out. So the hallway's just getting darker. And it's just like, oh my God.
But this French farmer guy, he finds her.
He's French-Canadian.
French-Canadian, we should
important.
mention, yes.
Because that is his character.
His accent is terrible.
The first thing he does is basically, like, harass Tessa Farmiga.
Yeah, Frenchie is a dumb, obnoxious character. I guess he's supposed to be the comic relief, but the movie is so funny naturally that he doesn't need to be there at all. No. Especially because, like, you even called it in the theater, Cleveland. Like, before they seal themselves up in the Abbey, they send him back to town. They're like, oh, come get us in a couple of days. And Cleveland's like, yeah, just in time to be a Deus Ex Machina. Yep. And that's exactly what happened.
Yes, it was.
He shows up to save the day.
Dude, I called so many things in that movie. It's so easy. I'm not saying it like a point of pride. Like it was
immediately as he's leaving, he gets spooked by the nun who's just like chilling outside waiting for him.
Yeah, like hardcore like zombie spooked, and he doesn't go back, to like get them then.
Oh yeah, like
he still has to have someone tell him that they're probably dead.
Yeah, well, like, instead of going back, he just takes one of the cross headstones and takes it with him to the bar.
Yeah, he pulls a crucifix up out of the ground from a grave and takes it back. On that subject, let's talk about when Constantine gets buried alive inexplicably.
Right. That was another moment that I called. They show the cliche with the bell over the tombstone, and he explains that the bell is there to in case the people who lived here were very religious and what's the fucking word?
Well, he said during the plague, people were scared of being buried alive,
yes,
so the bell is there
so
to.
They put the bell there in case they get buried alive.
In case they get buried alive.
And of course, that's the moment where. It's so clearly presented that obviously there's going to be a moment where she's out there, she hears one bell ring, and then all the bells on the scattered graves ring.
Well, yeah, the Constantine character has a troubled past.
Yes.
Because during the war, he tried to exorcise a demon from a little boy, and the boy died, and he had a crisis of faith or something.
And in the next scene, I had such a hard time not making kitty diddling jokes during that part with the Catholic Church.
I was thinking the same thing when he was like,
it's poor timing on this film.
There's like the boy suffered terrible wounds during the ordeal that he didn't recover from. I was just thinking. Especially because then they cut to like the boy lying on the ground, and Constantine is like holding him tenderly. He's like, Daniel, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, like I'm sure this movie will do really well in Pennsylvania. Oh yeah, quite well.
But so he has like visions of the little boy like running around, and he follows one out.
Wait, we didn't make it clear too. It is right after he recounts the events. There's no pause. There's no cool down because this film doesn't have any, and it's just he tells you the story of his regrets with this child, and then he takes a nap and he wakes up is woken up by the child, and immediately after that, like, has to confront this fear.
It's because they had to get him out to the graveyard in the middle of the night somehow, so they invented a convenient throwaway backstory. Yeah. And for some reason, the couple of times he appears in the movie, the ghost of the little boy keeps vomiting up a snake.
It's a metaphor.
And
it's a metaphor for kitty diddling.
And
Jesus.
And the first time in the graveyard, it startles the priest into falling over backward into an open grave, and then the camera pans down and we see that it's his name on the tombstone.
And suddenly it's
and then the ground is completely
buried.
filled in, and the bell is just ringing frantically. And then it cuts to Taissa Farmiga, and I thought that was supposed to be like a dream sequence, like he was gonna wake up or whatever.
Nope.
But no, it's like then we're just with her for a little while.
The twist is the entire movie is a fever dream.
She's wandering around, and she goes outside and she hears the bell ringing, and I was just like, oh my god, he's actually buried.
Well, I at first I thought it was going to be a dream sequence too, because this movie has an extreme amount of dream sequences and vision sequences. Like, one of the first scenes we have, besides the time that he sees the nun on the noose, the first scene besides that we get of the French Canadian, he's having like a dream where like there's just like blood going downstairs, and suddenly he wakes up.
Oh yeah, there's no context.
No context.
Presented. Yeah.
No, yeah, and like that's throughout the movie. There's just like an incoherent sequence of dream sequences and vision sequences.
It really was like written by an AI, like like that Harry Potter book, like chapter that was written by an AI. It really it did feel like that.
So
Ron was spiders, he just was. Like the nun was spooky, she just was.
When they got to the Abbey first, Taissa Farmiga tells Constantine that the reason she's a nun is because when she's a little girl, she had visions that said, Mary points the way. And it's like, they're telling us this is like, okay, this is going to be
an Indiana Jones.
This is going to be significant
thing,
to the plot in some way. But then it turns out that when she's in the Abbey hanging out with all of the nuns, that all of the other nuns in the Abbey are just a vision, and that they're not actually there for like a good chunk of the movie. The nuns that are there to serve as exposition only. When they, like, just her first night there, like, one of the nuns is like, a long time ago, this castle was built by a guy who tried to summon a demon, and then the church came in and killed him, and they took the Abbey as their own, and now we just have somebody praying constantly to keep the evil at bay.
Well, they have Jesus's blood, too.
Oh, yeah, they use Jesus's actual blood to seal the gate, and the only thing keeping it closed is constant adoration.
Yeah, I think they just stumbled on the nunnery from Monty Python, the Holy Grail.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like that's just.
Well, the funny thing is too is like
which I think was more of a period piece than this movie.
Once they figure out what was going on, or like what's going on, they keep talking about like they did such and such to seal in the evil. We have to do such and such to keep the evil from getting away. The evil is down there, and I just keep thinking about the end of The Nightman Cometh and It's Always Sunny when Dee comes out. She's like, "You have defeated the evil that was was here. I just kept thinking about that over and over. There's so much stupid shit in this movie.
It's so bad.
It's
so bad.
Like when Tyson Farmiga digs up Constantine before he can die. Oh, also like when he's in the coffin, when the spooky hands come in and like grab him, and then there's like the jittery nun face right next to his.
Yeah.
But when she digs him up, there's just in the bottom of his coffin, which were not there before, there's just inexplicably all of the books about demons they need to learn what's happening here.
Which is really just like the book of concept art for the movie. Like,
well, it's funny because most of the pages were like in Latin script, and then they just turn the page and in like chicken scratch it just says
like childish all caps like scribbling in English. It says Valak, and then Constantine is like, oh, the demon, the defiler, he bad demon. That must be what's going on here.
Yeah, like every fucking, demonic film ever made. There's the scene where they find the evil textbook, but this one is just so...
It's almost like
childish.
It's almost
so, like,
an afterthought. Like there's
made.
one scene of him looking at it, and he flips to that one page, and there's like a scribble of like a
right. And of course, when they first find the books, backtracking a little bit, like you see them looking down at this grave he was just ripped out of, and you see the corpse surrounded by these books, and they're very Necronomicon-esque. They've got like eyeballs in them and other shit. And the fucking priest, the professional at this job, looks down and he says, perhaps these books might show us the light, like show us the way, like they're holy books or some shit. When it's like you just were like ripped out of, like there were demons and shit in there like 2 seconds ago.
But
you saw them.
Also the implication is that the demon put those books in
there.
that coffin for him,
Right?
for him to find when he was buried with them for some reason. Like,
About this movie.
what I love so much about this movie is that it's supposed to be like the backstory for the antagonist in The Conjuring 2, and it gives virtually no backstory. It gives
You might say it gives none.
It
Just fuck.
It gives you none more backstory on the nun than The Conjuring 2 gives you. It's a pointless movie. It does not even set out to do what its basic premise is, I wonder, isn't the woman who plays the wife in The Conjuring, like the one who sees visions and shit, is that Vera Farmiga?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how Tyson Farmiga got this job.
Yeah, nepotism.
Nepotism. Her older sister was like, oh, you need somebody for this spin-off movie? Give it to my little sister.
Oh, man. But this movie takes, like, religious symbolism and just throws it at the wall. Like, incoherently.
Blends it.
Like, all the times that the spooky star, demon star, appears in this
the
movie.
pentagram?
Yeah.
When she's praying in the church,
God.
and the demon, like, rips off the back of her dress
and just
and
draws
carves a pentagram on her back.
Jesus. It's like they took like religious metaphors and texts and concepts from like Conjuring demonic films, and they took it as a meal and said, okay, this is a burger, this is, like these are the fries, this is all these things, and they just put them in a Cuisinart. Like, that's the film. You're just like, you're drinking a McDonald's like meal. Like, it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be consumed that way. That's not the point.
It's like that meme of that really fat guy blending together Doritos and Mountain Dew.
God, it is though. Like, it's like going to see this film. I would have felt similarly if I had gone to a barbecue joint, ordered a plate of ribs, and then they brought out the plate to me, and there was just sauce on it. Like, good rib sauce, but there's nothing. Like, there aren't any ribs. The ribs are in the sauce. Like, where are the ribs?
They blended up the bones with ribs, too.
Yeah, it's just rib sauce.
There's some lumps of gristle.
No, man. Like,
oh, my God.
Gristle has protein. This...
I mean...
This is nothing.
I will say this...
This isn't a movie. It's not a sandwich, it's ketchup.
I maybe laughed harder than I've laughed at any movie I've seen in theaters in a long time.
Agreed.
When I was watching this movie.
Agreed.
Like, I'll say it's dumber than Predator, or The Predator, excuse me, which is saying something, and it's dumber than Slender Man, but you could tell that there was so much sincerity behind what they were doing. Like, there's not a drop of self-awareness in this movie, and it reaches that level of, like, Trolls 2 or The Room, where you could tell they were trying their gosh darndest to make, like, a good, spooky, scary movie, and it's just so fucking bad. Like when Constantine guy is trying to find his way into the Abbey, and he looks down and sees his crossword in the newspaper, and it's all like smudged by water, and the only word that's visible is deliveries. And he looks up, and there's a door marked deliveries.
No reason. No explanation. Just looks down, sees on his crossword it says the word deliveries, and then he looks up at the door titled deliveries. And all I can think is deliver me from this movie.
But like, they did the crossword earlier in the movie.
A second ago.
Well, yeah, because in the carriage he's working on the crossword he can't figure out, and Tyson Formiga's like, deliveries. And he's like, you have a knack for this, sister. It's like she guessed the.
It's like the easiest crossword.
Crossword.
And what did it do? What purpose did it serve? Who did it? Why? Like, did the demon do it? Like, did the demon make that weird?
No, it was one of her visions. That's why the crossword was delivery. And
so
that's
God did it.
Yeah.
God is to blame.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All
well,
right.
I really like how the like door that leads into the catacombs is like marked in Latin, God ends here, and like that's really the best metaphor for this movie.
Quality ends here.
But because God looked down on this film and turned his face away from us sinners.
It's like the meme where he like just hits the reset button.
Like, yeah, God does end with this movie. Like,
time for a fucking crusade.
Oh my God. When they go down into the catacombs and there's the statue and there's this tiny beam of sunlight shining directly onto the finger of the Virgin Mary, and it's like Indiana Jones shit. Like, it bounces off the finger and reflects onto the hidden keyhole in the stone wall that reveals the actual blood of Christ.
You could play like cliche bingo with this movie, like so well. Just have your sheet out with all Indiana Jones, Friday the 13th, like every like cliche, like overdone film, overbaked and over homaged movie, and just play bingo off this film. And that for scene tropes.
And that the super weapon in this movie that allows them to defeat evil is the actual blood of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, just kept in a little glass
ball.
Egg.
It looks like the holy hand grenade from Monty Python, except it's got the blood of Jesus in it.
Or the apple, that whole shit.
Well, right.
But horrible, but terribly written.
And then,
but just thrown in a fucking Cuisinart.
But then, when they get down to the room where the portal is, and Tyson Formiga wanders into a pentagram without realizing it.
Surprise!
And Frenchie comes down and finds her like suspended over the pentagram with like a bag on her head.
I love how he bursts into the room by like diving through the door, realizes all the people in there, and just like starts backing up out of it.
Right, because before he came back to the nunnery, we did forget to mention when he's at the peasant's bar and he looks over the counter, or he's told by the peasant bar owner, oh yeah, you need to go back, you're probably gonna find corpses there tomorrow. And he looks up, and over the bar there's a literal shotgun, like Chekhov's gun, Like, because the writers don't know what a fucking metaphor is, and then of course he grabs the gun off of it and goes and kills nuns.
But
with it.
he only uses the gun twice. One to shoot the other zombie nun, who they then immediately set on fire.
Yeah.
And then the second time to shoot open that door, which he then tumbles head first through for some reason into the room where he finds Taissa Farmiga.
Yeah. Well, first he finds all the other nuns with their heads wrapped and doing bone crackling stuff right out of Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Like, just ripped out of it. Like,
yeah, that's true.
They just stole, like, not even homage, just stole from so many films.
But then he finds out that the evil scary nun has possessed Taissa Farmiga, because apparently it needs to possess a human to leave the abbey or whatever, which was confusing to me because I thought it possessed the old nun from the very beginning, which was why it looked like a nun, so it had a human vessel, but I guess not. I guess it just looked like a nun because...
Plot. Because movie title.
Because why not?
Yeah.
Because none your business. And it starts choking Frenchie, and then he just rubs some of the blood of Jesus on her face.
Paws it, yeah.
He paws it onto her face, and like the demon is just like blasted out of her.
Whoa. We gotta like have the dialogue lead up to that climactic moment now.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
When the nun speaks, like to him for like, and it's the first time you hear the nun speak, and it's like, you've been a failure all your life, which means literally nothing to us because we have no backstory on this character.
Backstory, yeah.
So it's like, oh, I guess he's a failure. I don't know, like, because I don't know him, so I don't care about him. And yeah, you've been a failure all your life. Which also implies that she knows his backstory, right? And then calls him, you fucking Frenchie, or whatever the fuck it says. Frenchman, yeah. So implies he knows his backstory, and then calls him a Frenchman.
Oh yeah, tells him to run away, just like the scared Frenchman or something.
Right, yeah, because that's spooky for demons, to to make racially based
jokes.
Make
French jokes.
Yeah,
I mean, we can make French jokes, but we're not demons, like.
Hey, speak for yourself.
We're lower levels of intelligence. But yeah, then he's just like, I'm French Canadian, and rubs the blood on her face.
Yeah, like, which again, if she was remarking on his past, then she knew he wasn't French Canadian. So she just said it for plot reasons.
I think it was because
they wanted that setup for the line.
His nickname was Frenchie, and she called him Frenchman. Yeah. It's very dumb.
It's extremely dumb. And then they have a fight in like a pool or something. Yeah. And the nun is drowning Taissa Farmiga, and then it like holds her up out of the water, and I guess it's gonna possess her or something.
Because baptism.
We should always also mention that the nun takes like 45 seconds to get out of the water. She just like slowly comes up out of the water,
and you see her like slowly emerging, like another
rising up out of the water,
because she like flies across the water like it does, like is everything. And anyway, but you see her slowly rising up, all spooky like, and it's maybe up to her mouth, and then the camera cuts away, looks over at the other dude for a like half of a second, and then cuts back over, and she's
my favorite part is Taissa Farmiga is just like sitting there screaming the whole time, not moving at all. Well, this is all
slowly rising from the water.
Well, she's got the blood of Christ on her neck or whatever, like in the vial.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that.
Me luxuriating in the hot tub. And then when she's like holding up Taissa Farmiga and she's gonna possess her or whatever, it cuts down to Taissa Farmiga holding the blood of Christ thing, but it's just got a big hole in it, and it's
the evil nun that's got it because it took it out of her hand.
Oh, okay, yeah, it took it out of her hand, and it's got like a big hole in it, but like it's made of glass, like it's broken. You can see the blood's not in there anymore.
It's because the blood is supposed to, like, in the egg, it's supposed to represent the original apple. Like that's the iconic
it's supposed
piece of Catholic symbolism.
It's supposed to represent
which is why she
the
took a
literal
bite out
blood
of,
of Christ.
You know,
it's supposed to be the actual blood of Jesus.
Yeah, like inside of the apple.
Just
like it's a whole thing. Like with like possessing knowledge. Like that's the.
I think you're reaching for the people who wrote.
I think it's Cuisinarted in.
I think you're
somewhere
trying
in the smoothie of what was a hamburger.
I think you're trying to put logic to something where there is no logic. But the point is,
I'm just trying to think like the screenwriters didn't.
The point is that Taissa Farmiga spits the blood of Christ into the nun's face, and that was the part that I laughed the second hardest in the movie. The first was with the deliveries thing, but that made me do.
The blood got me the most, honestly. It was too good.
I did a spit take without actually having anything in my mouth. It was that kind of laugh, and well, I mean, how did the blood get into her mouth?
She just took a chomp.
It was in like a glass sphere, and there was a hole in it. Like, did she take a bite out of it?
Yes.
Did she bite the glass sphere containing the blood of Christ and put it in her mouth? When did she do that?
She bit the apple, you know,
But it's made of glass. She bit a glass circle.
And there's no blood in the water.
No. She just has the blood of Christ in her mouth.
For the listeners too, like keep in mind it's like a vial suspended in a glass egg. There's no way to bite it.
Yeah, it's a vial shaped.
There's no
like
way
a
to bite
cross. No, it's literally like a Christmas a transparent Christmas ornament with a cross shaped vial of blood
inside of it.
Inside of it, yeah. And as soon as she spits it into the nun's face, the portal at the bottom of the pool opens and sucks the nun and all the water down like a big old toilet.
Yep.
That's what the power of Jesus' blood does.
The demon gets flushed.
The demon gets flushed to hell. And this is the kind of thing where if they were self-aware about it, I would almost find it frustrating. But because they were completely sincere in the creation of this movie and flushing the demon down the literal toilet to hell.
Toilet to hell would have been a better name for this movie.
Toilet to hell more accurately describes this movie than the title The Nun does.
Unless it was, N-O-N-E.
Yeah, none of this.
The Nun.
And
there's no movie here. Go home.
And then the movie just kind of ends after that.
Yeah,
except
suddenly all the shots are like color corrected with yellows and happy.
Like you defeated defeated the evil that was here.
Yep.
And but then
we sure did, gang. High fives all around.
As they're getting back into the cart to go back to town, we see that Frenchie has an upside down cross-shaped scar on the back of his neck
for reasons.
And then it cuts to
because they're gonna make another of these fuckers.
And then it cuts to the Conjuring movie people 20 years later giving a lecture at a college showing the exorcism of Frenchie. And so the nun demon was passed to him, but then it still shots on Vera Farmiga being scared of possessed Frenchie, and it freezes on that, so that's how we know that the nun was passed on to her. So that's how it made it all the way to The Conjuring.
Yeah.
So it actually only gives you context for The Conjuring in the last minute of the movie.
Yeah, if not less.
Minute of the
not
movie.
Even hyperbolic.
Yeah, maybe the last 30 seconds of the movie. And
it didn't even like expand at all,
No.
Zero.
Nope, not at all. And even though that shit was supposed to be 20 years later, like Frenchie was the same age in that exorcism.
They both were, yeah.
They both were, yeah.
Wow, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure the filmmakers didn't notice that either.
Yeah, I guess so.
This movie was so dumb.
I think,
it was delightfully dumb, though, honestly. Like,
yeah.
the
laughs were consistent.
I could probably go back and watch this movie again and have a good time because it's really fucking stupid.
I don't want them to have any more of my money. Is the only thing. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, this movie happened because the Conjuring franchise has gone buku. Like, because they've made tons of money and stopped giving a shit because they realized, because this movie was, made by, was greenlit by some CEOs said, oh yeah, those fuckers will watch anything, just throw money at it, and it'll work.
This movie came out almost a month ago too, if not a full month ago, and we thought that we would be the only people in the theater.
Yeah.
And they had moved it to one of their smaller theaters, but there were a lot of people in that.
Yeah, it was pretty packed.
There's going to be a sequel. I'm sure there is.
It was pretty full. I was surprised for a movie that has, and I looked at the other theaters in our area, and none of them were even showing it, and this theater had 2 showings tonight. And I was thinking, surely there's going to be nobody in this fucking movie. But it was pretty full.
Yep.
It was a small theater, but it was pretty full. And by the end of it, too, everybody else was laughing at it.
Yeah, the whole theater. And people who started out, legitimately scared and...
Yeah, at the beginning, there were some people gasping at times.
Which just had us giggling.
Which made me laugh.
Oh, yeah. And by the end of even the people who were scared by, the poorly written, jump scary bullshit, even then they were laughing. This film had... everyone laughing.
Well, there's that guy in the far back left corner who started laughing so hard that by the time the funny moment was over and the theater was quiet, he was just hacking up a lung because he was laughing
for air.
And I thought that was really funny.
I
definitely related.
That got me going again. I was laughing again after that.
Not just you, the whole theater.
Yeah.
Everyone was laughing with that guy. By the end of it.
No, that was really fucking
no
funny.
No one was bothered by this guy loudly hacking with laughter in the back because everyone had checked out of the movie at that point.
Normally I would feel bad about talking during a movie because we
not
did
even,
it.
yeah.
We did it a lot in this movie,
no
but
one gave a shit.
We were not the only ones. I heard other people mumbling pretty consistently.
And to be clear, even if I think a movie's bad generally, I'm not gonna talk loudly during it because out of respect for everyone else who's there, and but in this case, everyone had checked out.
No, by the end of it, everybody had checked out.
Everyone was talking. Everyone,
I'm in the camp that there's a certain type of movie that you're actually expected to talk through.
Like a Disney ride. That's the point.
This or The Predator.
Yeah.
Or Gotti,
This was one of those movies for sure. Mm-hmm. By the way, Cleveland, you win prediction of jump scares in this movie. There were 10.
No!
I counted. Yeah, you were spot on. I guessed 8 and Ben guessed 13. And yeah, you were dead on, so...
Well, I Price Righted you, to be fair. You said 8 or 9, and so I just...
Well, I said
10.
8, then you said 9, you're like, no, I'll make it around 10. So
because Ben said 12, right?
I said 13.
13. Yeah, so pick a middle. Which means I think we were all right on. I just picked the median between you two.
I will say this movie defied my expectations in the extent that I went into it expecting a similar experience that I got from Insidious: The Last Key, which we talked about a couple of months ago in our 2018 mid-year catch up, which was a movie that was largely just boring and uninteresting and kind
more
of
competently made, but
I mean,
less fun.
It had some fun moments. There were definitely some really dumb schlocky
super
moments.
fun 15 minutes.
Yeah, and so I was expecting a similar experience from this movie. I'm like, Conjuring franchise, it's gonna be super grimdark and take itself really seriously, both of which were true. But it took itself so seriously, and it was made so incompetently.
But with such a budget that it defied even my wildest expectations. It was so much dumber than I was expecting. I was looking for a dumb studio movie where they're making it as plain and unoffensive as possible because they have to. But this movie was so incredibly stupid, but so incredibly serious. And still incredibly safe
And very, very safe.
Because it had all been done before, like so many cliches. I'll say, I think I said it in the car on the way up here. Like the way I sort of picture this film is with a metaphor of a beautiful Baroque gilded frame, and that represents the budget of this movie, but it's all wrapped around a children's refrigerator drawing.
Yeah.
It's just absurd.
I mean, yeah, the loose, what you could maybe argue is a plot in this movie is definitely drawn in the sloppy, broad strokes of a toddler.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, like I think the writer's room.
That's why
being real was probably like, what is it, Cannonball Studios, in the 80s? Like it was just that. It's just cocaine. It's a bunch of writers doing cocaine and like building a spreadsheet.
See, I don't even know if I agree with that. This seems more to me like a bunch of dudes in like their 50s and 60s trying to make a scary movie from what they remember being scary when they were like 10.
See, I just envision it being like fat, failed children chomping away on candy, like...
Yeah, candy corn, like you were saying.
Like they aren't smart enough to actually think things through. They just take the first idea that comes to their head every time, just throw it down on paper.
Well, see, this...
I think we're just trying to make sense of something that we can't.
This movie is so like cookie cutter. You could take out any of the characters, replace them with any other characters.
Archetypes.
Same with the setting, and same with the villain. It doesn't have to be a spooky nun. It could be literally any other demon or entity or whatever put in its place, and it would make the same amount of sense. Which is granted not much, but like it's so by the book and so like unspecial, like there's no originality to it, and it's comical in its lack of originality.
It is. It's like whoever created this film read The Hero of a Thousand Faces and just got the wrong point. Just got the wrong idea.
All right, well let's rate this thing. Ben, you start.
All right. Well, unlike you guys, I don't think I had as much fun in this movie.
I was mad at times.
It was a slog at times, honestly, in the first half especially. Like there were definitely funny set pieces, like the coffin scene or deliveries, but it definitely picked up in the second half. That being said, we're eating in 2018 for good bad movies.
Yeah, true.
Between this and The Predator and Gotti, I've heard Venom is similar. Haven't seen it yet, but this was a good bad movie, mostly because it was so sincerely executed and just so off the mark. But, it didn't really do anything new, and it was more frustrating for me than anything else. The fact that everyone else was laughing in the theater made it easier to deal with, but I think if I was watching this by myself, I would have a hard time getting through it. I honestly had a little bit more fun in the theater with Predator too, because at least in Predator, it was similarly sincerely bad throughout, but it was at least trying to do new things.
I mean, I guess, but also like, how sincere was it if our theory is correct and it was a prank by Shane Black? It was sincerely a prank. Well,
yes, but it was sincere in its execution in that it wasn't tongue-in-cheek.
True. I'll give you that.
And in a similar way, this movie isn't tongue-in-cheek at all either, but this movie doesn't even try to do anything new.
I think that the only people who are laughing after the film are the CEOs who are going to be rolling in the cash off this.
Well, I mean, we were laughing after
we
the
were
fact.
laughing our asses off at how bad that movie was.
Yeah, so exactly. We were still laughing, and there are laughs to be had from this movie because it's so bad. But I would actually recommend seeing something like The Predator over this
because
these guys
more money.
Because
they'll just spend it on more cocaine. And do more and not write more movies.
Give them enough cocaine and we'll get another Maximum Overdrive. Like, like cocaine makes funny horror movies. And this movie was funny.
Okay, so to before you get into that, since we're talking about putting money in the pockets of these cocaine junkies, I just decided to look up the numbers for this movie. The budget was about 22 million.
Gee, yep.
Opening weekend, it did almost 54 million.
Yep.
And
Laughing to the bank.
To date, domestic, it has done $115 million.
No, I don't want to know that.
And foreign, it has done twice that.
See,
I love you guys.
the thing
I'm
about
not seeing
the thing about
I'm not going
thing
on another
about
wacky world with. I'm not going on another adventure to the wacky world of.
You want to get off of Mr. Bones'
I
wild
want to get
ride?
off of Mr. Wan's wild ride. All right?
The thing is,
Say that now,
you keep saying that they're laughing their way to the bank, but that implies that they think they're making a bad movie and are in on that joke. I think they made a masterpiece. I think they made.
At least
I
the
think they
director
think.
did.
I think Jason Blum thinks he produced a fantastic movie as well. I think everyone involved thinks they made an awesome movie, and that's what makes it funnier in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the disconnect
that
from
being
reality.
said,
Yeah.
I don't think there was enough to take out of this movie to warrant seeing it in the theaters, especially.
Because in context,
I will say that seeing it in a communal setting, like a movie theater, where everyone is just fed up and laughing at it by the end of it, was a better experience than seeing it alone. But I don't think it's worth your money, even as a good bad movie. If we're gonna rate this, I would give this a 1 out of 5 pods. It was garbage.
I agree that it is garbage. I will be perfectly honest in my admission that I went into this movie totally blasted. I was not sober even a little bit. And
I could have been more blasted if we're being real.
I mean, I could have been,
I was not blasted enough.
same.
I could have been more blasted, sure. I could always be more blasted, but like, I went into this movie with rock bottom expectations and not sober, and I had a great fucking time. It's such a dumb, stupid, terrible movie. I think I can agree with you that I don't think it necessarily needs to be seen in theaters. We can almost certainly expect to see The Nun 2 next year or year after. I'm also going to give it a 1 out of 5 pods because it is a terrible movie, and there's nothing that will ever change that. But I laughed so much during this movie. Like, my theater experience was excellent. I was not bored. I had such a good time watching this movie. I cannot remember the last time I laughed so hard in the theater.
Would you recommend seeing this in the theater if you don't pay for it, just for the communal setting?
I recommend seeing literally anything in theaters if you don't pay for it. Like, free, if you're going to go see movies for free, okay, go see movies for free. Yeah. You have nothing to lose. But yeah, a communal setting's good. And if you do wait for this on streaming or Blu-ray or DVD or whatever,
and bad movies are your thing.
Yeah, like if bad movies are your thing, like watch it with some friends.
Yeah,
like,
it definitely works on bad movie night. And again, like play bad movie bingo with it, you know, or trope bingo. You can do it,
or turn it into a drinking game. Or
I don't know about drinking game though. You will be too gone.
Play the mustache game or something. Like I will say that I think a communal setting in some sense is necessary to enjoy this movie. I don't think you'll have fun at all if you watch it by yourself.
Yeah, I'll summarize in short because I feel a pretty strong middle ground between the two of you.
Between 1 and 1.
Well, no, on your opinions, like in that I felt like I was flitting back and forth so much. I was so conflicted during this movie between like bouts of laughter and fits of rage over just how heavy-handed the homage or the imitation was, like, at times, and really hilariously bad at other times for the majority of the film. And yeah, for me it was beat for beat, like, comedically terrible.
Yeah.
This film doesn't stop.
The Nun is the best comedy of 2018.
Yeah, so far. I mean, I'll agree with that. So I'll give it one Hail Mary.
Okay, one Hail Mary full of grace. Well, that's a unanimous one from all of us. Yeah, I don't think we need to repeat what we've said about seeing this movie. I will close out by saying that though it is dumber than Slender Man, I would see this movie over Slender Man 100% of the time. If I never see Slender Man again, that is A-okay with me. But if I was getting some buddies together for a bad movie night and we had a bunch of booze and weed, I would absolutely watch this movie.
This is going to be a competitive Razzie season this year. That's all I gotta say.
Let's take that opportunity to transition into Metacritic Corner.
You freaking pricks! When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
Now for this week, we're going off of Metacritic entirely because we have something even better. The review that I'm going to be reading is from the National Catholic Review. And
Praise be.
Praise be.
Crossing myself.
This review was written by an actual nun. It's called One Nun's Take on Horror Film, The Nun. This is a long article. I haven't read all of it, so I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing, but we'll find the fun...
I don't think we'll need to.
We'll find the fun bits. As I begin this review, let me say that there are two Catholic theological aspects of this film that are accurate. One is that the devil exists. And the other...
Hail Satan.
The other is that Mary, the mother of Jesus, will show us the way.
By pointing with light.
The Nun is the fifth exorcism-inspired film of the Conjuring Annabelle franchise, with a screenplay by Gary Dauberman, co-writing the story with James Wan, director of the first two Conjuring films.
I'm gonna stop real quick. I'm just picturing like a processor with the name Gary Dauberman over it. I'm not picturing a man.
It's a computer with a label.
It's a little bow tie.
A label is like half peeled off.
Oh, it's time to do another Conjuring movie. Oh, let me power up Gary.
Just like stick the label back on. Who wrote two of the Annabelle films and co-wrote It, a horror film I really liked, and directed by...
Wait, he co-wrote It? So they just ripped from his own movie, like during the flood scene, the flushing scene at the end? The flushing?
Yeah, why not?
I can't believe this was co-written by one of the guys who wrote It.
Yeah,
I'm disappointed.
And directed by Corin Hardy, The Hallow, whatever that is.
Probably bad.
I'm sure. The Nun is a scare fest with a very thin plot, one-dimensional characters, true, and a premise that shows little familiarity with actual Catholicism. In fact, I was more bothered by this than the sight of possessed nuns with gory faces infesting the night with fright.
You know your movie's bad when like literal nuns are like giving it like are mocking it.
This is not very Catholic.
Yeah, like I'm so far I'm totally in this nun's camp. I agree with her fully.
At the International Press Day in Mexico City, Warner Bros. Put on an impressive experience for those of us fortunate enough to attend. What?
She got to go?
The screening and
Who is
interviews.
this nun?
She writes for the National Catholic Review. She can go where she wants.
Yeah, I guess so. They're budgeted.
She has.
They got that holy money.
She carries the authority of God. The screening and interviews took place at the Desierto de los Leones, a former monastery of Discalced Carmelites built in the very early 1600s. I don't know. Discalced? What is that word?
She's demonstrating that she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah. Well, it's capitalized, too, so it must be a thing. Yeah. If there's Catholic listeners to this, excuse my ignorance. Located about an hour outside of Mexico City, depending on traffic, today is part of a beautiful national park. The monastery itself is still very primitive, and if you are the type to scare easily, who knows what you might see after seeing a horror film about well, nuns and devils. 2 actors took us through rooms in a cemetery set up as the monastery in the film. It was very clever and by far the most immersive experience
All right, I'm no longer on this nun's page.
Press day.
Wait, what?
If it hadn't been for the gift each journalist found in their hotel room...
during the event, not the set for the movie.
After the
Got
press
it.
interviews,
Never mind.
I would not be very well disposed towards this film. But they gave us a traditional Mexican ex voto, a painting on a metal plate as an act of devotion.
What are they?
Oh my god, they're just trying to bribe the fuck out of these critics.
Wait, so like these nuns, like they were like whining and dining these like nun critics.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
The prayer reads on this metal painting, "Dear God, please receive this humble gift as a grateful offering for helping me survive this terrible and anguishing experience and letting me continue to watch horror films. Signed, a devoted moviegoer."
All right, I'm back on this nuns page.
I had to laugh. I won't take the nun too seriously if you won't. Well, right
Bless
on.
her.
I
Love
did
her.
not.
Love it.
The film opens in 1952, a prequel to events that will unfold in The Conjuring 2, where a nun, Sister Valak, shows up in the dreams of Lorraine Warren, a real-life character who with her husband carry out exorcisms. Flashback 20 years or so in the past, a young nun in a monastery in Romania has killed herself for unknown reasons. The Vatican assembles a commission to study if the ground has been desecrated or if evil has taken over the cloister.
Spoiler alert.
Cardinal Conroy summons Father Burke, a troubled priest he knows his experience with exorcisms, and a novice from a teaching community, Sister Irene. The Cardinal knows her as a child who had experienced eerie religious visions of a nun. Believing these are the best persons to investigate, he sends them to the remote monastery in post-war Romania. The two arrive at a local village and meet Frenchie, a Canadian who has stayed in the village to help out the people. He also delivers supplies to the monastery, leaving them in the cave beneath that also contains a large freezer and a portal to the convent above.
Oh my god.
He has something disturbing to show them.
Surprisingly, it's not his dick.
How does that freezer work?
That's a great question.
That just hit me. Like,
well, yeah,
it's a
because there's like
fucking freezer.
ice inside.
Yeah.
And it's literally just like a little stone shack that's like partially underground. Like, yeah, I get like building your shit kind of underground so it stays cool, but there's no reason it should have been icy in there.
Weird.
Expecting
There was no
logic
electricity
out of
there.
this movie.
There was no
Gonna have a
electricity
bad
in
time.
That building.
Of course, the two, and eventually Frenchie, encounter the nun who is possessed by the devil, along with others that I will leave to your imagination to figure out. Chases, escapes, and even a live burial ensue. Plenty to keep you scared of walking the dark, cold stone floors and narrow passageways of an ancient and remote mountaintop castle in Romania in the middle of the night. Like there's lots of us out there doing that. To the writer's credit, there are plenty of crucifixes that spin mysteriously. To the writer's credit? I'm not done. And rosaries, and even a passing mention of the Eucharist. Though there is no sign that anyone understands what the body of Christ means in the face of real diabolical possession, where a demon takes possession of a person without their permission. Obsession, demon-inspired irrational thoughts such as a suicidal ideation, oppression, external torments, or infestation that can affect dwellings, things, and animals. Exorcism of demons in the film is shown through the frequent invocation of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and Father Burke using a cross to cast out the devil, but he has a very difficult challenge in front of him.
I love that she's so excited that they mention the Eucharist in this movie.
I mean, she's a nun. What
Oh
else
my!
is she getting out of this? If you are a Catholic who is reasonably knowledgeable of the faith, but you like horror films, you can appreciate that the devil does enter through portals. That human beings open.
I was so on this nun's page. I was so with this nun. Man.
In the film, the only way you can show a portal is visually, though here it is difficult to understand the spiritual malady that created it in the first place as a way to invite the devil into the monastery.
This person was very, very confused by Inception.
The solution is also that no Catholic exorcist would ever use, but then you couldn't have a film franchise. Some of the spiritual portals in our time are pornography, astrology, tarot cards, use of horoscopes, and playing with Ouija boards. One needs to remember that the church investigates cases of alleged possession carefully, including the mental health of persons before performing an exorcism. At the press day, I asked the director and 2 key actors what they did to prepare for the film, if they did any research or had a consultant.
The answer was a staunch no. We consulted Gary.
Bisher, whoever that is, I think that's the guy who played Constantine, said that he learned much about Catholicism from his grandmother, so he was familiar with the ethos in which he was working. He was also very impressed with John Paul II's visit to Mexico when he was a child. However, for his character, he imagined himself as a strong fighter, as one who combated the devil and evil. For Farmiga, she admitted that she had only had a day between finishing one film and departing for Romania, where the film was shot over 2 months in 2017. So most of her research was done watching YouTube videos. To learn how to comport herself as a nun. She fulfills the role very well.
She just watched Sister Act back to back on the plane.
Vicar of Dibley.
Though the thin and staggered storyline must have been a challenge. When I asked Colin Hardy if he did any research or if he just watched all the other devil movies to prepare, he admitted that he only watched other exorcism movies. He is a true fan of the genre and was intrigued by Doberman's script. That explains why the entire movie was just a rip-off of... Yeah, it was all tropes. Yeah. In fact, he showed us one of several notebooks where he sketched out the characters for the film. Matisse, am putting characters in quotation marks.
Just stick figure drawing.
Where he sketched out the characters for the film, demonstrating his notable artistic ability. Hardy did say that a local priest did come and bless the set, but this is as close to a consultant as they got. Oh.
He just shows this nun a notebook of his crayon drawings.
He also said he wished the screenwriter Gary Doberman could have been there to answer my questions. The next day at breakfast...
Wow, so
where am I and why am I smelling toast?
The next day at breakfast, before leaving Mexico City, Hardy brought his wife and 2 daughters over to my table to say hello. I had given him a rosary ring the day before that I had blessed at the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and he reminded me that he promised to wear it on a chain. It was too small to wear. It is very hard to critique a film harshly when you meet the director, and he turns out to be a really nice man with a lovely family. Truly, I wish that Hollywood would imagine what they don't know, because they don't even know what they don't know.
What?
Exactly. Consultants would make for a better movie. I am convinced of it.
I agree.
These people watch too many movies. A final word. The Nun is not intended to be a vocation movie, in case you were wondering. I suppose you could say it makes Catholic nuns look trite and cliched if you think horror is not a valid genre. I happen to think it is a valid form of artistic expression.
Oh, good for her.
Good for her. Isolation, darkness, fear, and unknowing are some of the key tropes of horror movies. Catholic images and teaching, along with characters in red vestments, white habits and collars, and sacramentals such as crucifixes and rosaries,
and Ouija boards,
are ideal for cinema because it is a visual medium. The image of a nun is iconic, and turning the cultural fear of nuns, though there are no rulers in this film, into figures and icons of horror was going to happen eventually. The Nun does it very effectively. The production quality is top-notch. I am sorry they revert to suicide as a plot device. Suicide is so prevalent today in real life, and it, like anything else, can feed someone's fragility. because
I'm saddened that there were so many crosses spun upside down in this movie. It's a serious issue today.
Oh my god, okay, no, I'm not finished. I'm almost done. Because this is a horror film about the devil, well, I took a bottle of holy water with me to the monastery.
Oh, excellent.
Several other journalists laughed, but were happy to be sprinkled with it just the same.
She just sprinkled the other critics in the theater just to be safe. Oh my god.
If I was offered.
I'm not sure filmmakers get what they are really dealing with, but if people come away believing the devil is real, well then that's a good thing. And that's the end.
Oh my god. I love how she said she didn't think this was cliched because she thought horror was a legitimate genre, as if not believing horror is a legitimate genre means you can't think this was super cliched. Oh my god.
God bless this woman. That's one of the funniest things I've read in a long time.
I would like to read more of her work.
I might subscribe to the National Catholic Review after
might
this.
be worth it. I think that might be the moral of the story.
At least for sure in further movies about demonic possession.
I think I'm just imagining her other reviews, like her reviewing Venom.
No rosaries in Venom. 0 out of 10.
I sprinkled holy water on all of these critics, and they were so confused.
During the climax of Venom, I got up in front of the screen and started sprinkling the screen with Venom water, praying loudly. I was asked multiple times to leave the theater. I did not.
Before the film started, I poured holy water into the fire extinguishers.
Oh my god. All right, well that was a long Metacritic corner, but it was a fucking good one. That was really special for
Classic.
me.
When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
Well, that brings us to the end of this exciting episode about The Nun. Thank you as always for listening. Hypes up for fucking season 2. Toot 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 toot. Next week, it's getting to be about that time. It's that spooky, scary time of the year we all love so much. And, it's finally time for Halloween 2018.
Halloween is my birthday now, bitch.
And
Freddy
not only
Krueger
do I
voice.
mean the holiday Halloween 2018, but also the movie Halloween 2018, the long-anticipated sequel to John Carpenter's 1978 film that this one ignores all of the sequels.
Bless.
Even Halloween 2, which is a legitimately great film. But yeah, it's rewriting the whole canon, and we talked
Coming out on my birthday.
That's true, on the 19th.
Halloween's my birthday now. It's canon.
It's canon. And I think it's fitting because for our Halloween episode last year, we talked about the original Halloween and the Rob Zombie remake, and how fortuitous that on Halloween of season 2, we're getting the next installment. So check back next week for our thoughts on that. If you like the show, be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at PodPeoplePod. Check us out on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/PodPeoplePod. For a list of all the films we've talked about on the show, our average ratings, and the links to those episodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Van Awesome.
I'm at Mr. Sheets.
Where can they find you, Cleve?
I don't want to be found. I'm a lone wolf.
No, you're an artist and you want to plug all of your shit.
You can find my portfolio on ArtStation as Cleveland Mosher. You can also I'm right now running the Twitter account, and by running I mean running into the ground. The Twitter account for Light Arc Studios, and that's about it right now, I guess.
Yeah, big things happening on that front soon.
Yes,
we're making progress on the demo,
We are
chugging
indeed.
away. Well, thank you as always for listening. Check back next week for Halloween 2018. I hope you're as excited as we are. I'm Matisse Van Rossum.
I'm Ben Sheets.
And I'm Cleveland Mosher.
Have a spooky, spooky night.
Yeah.
Hooray.